Greetings, and welcome back to our Standing Watch program. Has the United States of America reached their last days of existence as we know that nation? This might be a provocative question, but surprisingly perhaps, a world bestseller has been published stating exactly that, comparing the United States of America today with the last days of the existence of the Roman Empire, comparing the American president with the last emperor of the Roman Empire. We find an unbelievable anti-Americanism these days around the world, perhaps more so than ever before in the existence of this nation. We also find an unbelievable low level of an approval rate of the President of the United States of America, even within its own country. So much so that some commentators and analysts point out that perhaps no other president in the history of the United States of America has ever had such a low approval rate. Anti-Americanism, though, isn't limited towards anti-Bush, but it is actually anti-nation. And there are reasons for this, believe it or not. And the Bible has prophesied that this would happen in those last days. And yes, my friends, according to what we are observing today in the United States of America, in Great Britain, in Australia, in Canada, New Zealand, and in Europe, and in Russia and other places around the world, these are in fact the last days of our human civilization as we know it. God has told us that if we obey Him, then He will bless us. But if we curse Him, or rather turning our back on Him, then He will withdraw His blessings. It is interesting that in Great Britain right now, the Church of England, at least some very prominent bishops of that Church of England, have stated that the terrible weather conditions England is suffering from at this point are a direct consequence of God's withdrawing His blessings because of a lifestyle of the British people which isn't pleasing to Him. And they specifically talk about pride, and they talk about homosexual relationships. We have reached an unparalleled situation in both the United States of America and in Great Britain that the overwhelming majority of the people don't support their leadership. That is true for the United States. That is also true for Great Britain, because most of the British people are very upset with Tony Blair for what he did, and he had to step down when it wasn't really his time yet. I mean, there were no elections forcing him to step down. He had to do it because he didn't have the support anymore of the people and of his colleagues. And we see here in the United States of America that more and more Republicans even are now separating themselves from President Bush, knowing that if they have too much of a linkage with him, their chances for becoming a candidate for presidents is not very great. And we also find that more and more acts are being done here in the United States which don't find the support of the American people, whether it has to do with immigration, whether it has to do with the pardoning, or at least a step towards the pardoning of Mr. Libby, and other matters. Why should it be that way? Can we expect a better relationship, let's say, if another president from another party should become elected during the next election? I don't think so. The Europeans know that whether it was the Republicans or the Democrats, they all voted for the Iraq War and supported the American adventure in that part of the world. And today, of course, many say, oh, if we had only known the facts, we wouldn't have voted for it. Well, some voted against it. Having access to the same facts everyone would have had access to. And so there isn't really much of an excuse. And at the same time, nothing is happening today, even though the Democrats are now running the Congress, at least have a majority in Congress, and still the Iraq war is ongoing. So much so that a British newspaper pointed out that in order to maintain the present power and the presence of the American troops in Iraq and in Afghanistan, a draft will have to be instituted next year. A totally and highly unpopular move that would be. In addition, we hear more and more of ideas to launch an attack against Iran, which is frightening the world, which is frightening Europe, which is frightening actually many people within the United States. And we hear that from politicians from both parties, not just one. And so we don't think that the situation will get any better, no matter who is going to run this country. And the reason is because we have turned our back on God. We have turned our back on His law. We do not follow what God tells us. We are supposed to love God and our neighbor as ourselves. Do we do that? Do we actually love our neighbor if we go out and shoot and kill him in war? Or in all this violence which we have in this country and in countries, of course, around the world? God has said, if you continue to turn your back on me, I will curse you. And we are fast approaching the time where God will totally withdraw His protection from us. We haven't quite reached that time yet. There is still time to repent. There is still time to turn around. There is still time to beseech God to help us, to show us the way, to do what is right in His own eyes. But we are getting closer and closer to this terrible and dreadful time, which the Bible calls the Great Tribulation and the Day of the Lord. Now, you might have heard about those terms, and you might not know actually what they mean, and you may not even know what they describe. We have a booklet prepared for you, free for the asking. It is entitled The Great Tribulation and the Day of the Lord. You should read that booklet. You should familiarize yourselves with what the Bible prophesies, because there is still hope. We can collectively and individually turn and go back to God, but time is running out. So please do yourself a favor and read our free booklets, The Great Tribulation and the Day of the Lord. As I said so many times before, all our literature, and especially this one, will open your eyes. Thanks very much for watching. Until next time, this is Norbert Link for the Standing Watch program.